No, I don't believe so. So a couple of things. We are gonna live stream this, and this is open session. So everybody will be privy to our discussions. We've got Matt Cook here to help us with our superintendent search, and he's got some preliminary results on some of the survey stuff that we did. And we just wanted to kind of open this one, get a feel for a little bit of the process, some of the open questions that we might have. And, it should be a nice little session to get us kicked off on. As you can see, we've only got 6 folks here tonight. We've had a couple sicknesses,
Yeah.
but, we'll be sure to.
This is the
Yeah, I'll
extra
get
for those who aren't here. All right. You good to go?
We're good.
Okay. So I'll try to stand in a way that's not having my back to everybody, but for those that I haven't met yet, I'm Matt Cook. I'm the district superintendent of OCN BOCES, and Eddie talked a little bit about getting the search started. I would say the search is started. I actually already have a screening interview set up. So word is out, brochure's not even out, but candidates are interested in this position. So you should feel good about that. A few things that I just wanted to make sure we covered tonight, and so make sure that everybody's on the same page. We'll start in the left side of your packet. I had the timeline. So the last time we were together, I gave you a draft timeline, just so you could sort of see how the process could work. This is the revised timeline based on where we actually are. And I've moved things up about a month. So trying to be a little more aggressive for you. I don't know if you've seen the news, but I met with the Marathon Board last week. We'll meet with the Cincinnatus Board Thursday night. I meet with the Liverpool Board Monday night, and then the JD Board Monday night, and the Liverpool Board next Wednesday night. So it is entirely possible that I'll be at least fully or partially involved in 5 or 6 searches. So you're first. So congratulations. That means you get the first crack at dates, right? So one of the things that I will do after this meeting is I will send an email to all of the board members with a poll so that we can start to block out dates. And what we'll be looking for are some specific times to get together in the process. We'll go over that on the second half of this sheet, but I just wanted you to get a sense of sort of where we're at. So the vacancy announcement in the brochure is basically done. I want us to look at it tonight and get your last feedback on it. But it's gone back and forth with folks from your PR department and Tom's office to make sure that the content in it is correct. So with your blessing, we can get that out by the end of this week and then get rolling on that. From there, the deadline for the applications to get in would be January 6th. That sort of gives it's about a month and a half for candidates to put their pieces together. My initial timeline had it at the end of January, so that's put us a month up, which I think is good for us. I'll be doing the screenings in January. We want to try to meet by the end of January to go over all of the candidates with you, and that way that gets us into interviews in February, second round interviews in March. We're doing finalist interviews end of March, beginning of April, and you're off to the races. So we're in really good shape timeline-wise. Any questions about the timeline?
Do you have when we get to that initial, how many folks do you typically like to interview to start with?
Yeah, well, so I'm just going to use a generic number because it's very hard to predict how many candidates we're going to get. But let's say 20, right? I would say the searches that I've been doing lately, the numbers are between 12 and 20 candidates. So let's be optimistic and say, and I do think Homer's going to be an attractive spot. So let's say 20 candidates. The initial screening interviews, unless I've already screened them, I'll meet with all of them. Okay. And I do that individually. So nobody gets to you before I've had a conversation with them and I sort of know who they are and what they're all about. Then from there, we'll have that meeting, and that's one of the things that we need to decide on. It's the candidate review meeting. So in your timeline, that would be about halfway down. I'm saying I'd like that to be done by January 31st. Right? I've identified you have a public budget hearing on the 28th. My experience is it's better to do this as a separate meeting. It's better to not try to cram this in before or after another meeting. I just know it's hard to get 9 people together, as evidenced by tonight, we have 6, right? But as much as humanly possible, I want all 9 board members at everything, because I don't want any of you to feel left out of the process. I want all of your voices involved in the process, and I want you to have equal access to all of the information. So if you miss, it's tough, and if somebody has to miss, because that's life, right? I'll do my best to make it up to you in terms of content, but when we get to the screening conversation, that initial candidate review meeting, and then the interviews, if you could all be present, that's huge. So that's why the next most important thing we'll do is that poll of what dates work, and then we're going to lock those in, and that's the commitment.
With the screening, is it possible at that meeting we can have like what the whole pool that was that applied that we can have, and that we can have where you're like what questions you asked, what their response, like all. I know that's probably going to be an important thing that we kind of.
Yeah. So the I can tell you, my screening interviews aren't like rigidly set with prescribed questions. There are things I listen for as I meet candidates. If candidates aren't talking about kids in the first 5 minutes, that's not great. If candidates, if I know something about them, then I'm going to ask them to explain more about sort of where they're at, why Homer, why. I'm looking for fit. I'm looking for somebody who can identify what areas they're weak in. I'm looking for, do they have resources to be able to fill in the holes that they're weak in? Because nobody comes into the superintendency having all of the boxes checked. And so I'm looking for those kinds of things. So I'm happy to fill you in on that, but I won't have like, I won't have full set questions. But what I will have is the packet on each candidate. So you'll have their resume, their cover letter, their application. We'll go over all of that together. So you'll have access to all the paperwork. And you'll have access to all the paperwork. Let's say there's 20 candidates, you'll have access to all 20. I might say to you, here's 5 I think you definitely want to see. Here's 2 or 3 I wouldn't recommend. Here's the rest. We're going to talk about the rest. We'll talk about all of them. And if you want to see the 2 or 3 that I would recommend, you get to see the 2 or 3 that I don't recommend. But I'll tell you why. Right? Did I use this example before? There was a person that I met with. There was a district that I was doing a search for, and there was an issue that had happened that had made national news. And so I asked all the candidates when I screened them, tell me a little bit about what you know about X district, right? And the person wasn't able to identify that issue. So I had to let the board know that this person wants to be your superintendent, but didn't do a 5-minute Google search. I'm going to say to you, I'm not recommending that person.
Sure.
You see, right? So it can be as simple or egregious as that, right? But that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for. Have they done their homework? Are they a serious? Because I'm going to try not to waste your time. So that's sort of timeline pieces. So that candidate review meeting. So if we flip that sheet of paper over on the back, you'll see these are the dates that I think that we want to get locked in. Sometime in that week of the 20th of January or the 27th of January, hopefully we can find a night to do that candidate review meeting, because I think that's going to be sort of the first big important piece. And we probably don't need to get back together again until then. I can certainly update you on email and those kinds of things in terms of where we're at, but that'll be the next big block of time that we'll have together, because by then we'll have that candidate pool. We want to block out as soon as we can 4 to 5 nights for initial interviews for you. I'm a big believer that you don't want to be too tired when you're doing the interviews. If you try to cram in 5 interviews in a night, by the time you get to the 4th and 5th interview, those candidates don't get your full attention in the same way. So I want to, I like to try to do around 3 per night if we can keep it to that. It means more nights and it means more time. My wife doesn't love that, but but I think it's the better way to do it. Try to give the candidates the best shot that they can have to be able to present themselves to you. Then we're going to look for 3 to 4 nights later for the second round with the board, and then we'll find days. When you get to finalists, usually 2 to 4 candidates. Ideally, it's not more than 3, but there are times where you'd love to be in a position where you had 4 candidates that you just loved and you couldn't make up your mind, and you wanted to have community feedback on all 4 of those. That'd be a great problem to have, but it's a problem, right? You'd rather have a more limited pool of finalist candidates. But we'll work through that process, and then, we'll find those dates for that. The board's role on that night usually is, candidate will spend like the day in the district, right? They'll meet with student groups, they'll meet with faculty groups, they'll meet with.
That's what I was gonna ask, that was my question.
Yep. So the rest of the folks who might be involved in the interview process don't come in until that role. And then what we're gonna do is keep the process confidential until finalists. And so that way candidates are more comfortable moving through the process. And I think that'll help increase your pool. If I can say to the candidates, your name's not gonna be public unless you're a finalist, then that'll help increase the candidate pool a little bit. And I especially saw in your survey, one of the things that was important to you is to have people who might have had a superintendent experience or high-level district experience. We talked about the difference between the confidential search and the open search before. You're going with an open search, so if we could keep it open just at the end and confidential before that, I think we can increase the candidate pool that way.
The other schools you're searching for, are they doing the same thing? Or is there?
You're the only ones that are confirmed, so I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
My guess is, so I just finished the North Syracuse search. That was a confidential closed search.
Did they hire somebody?
They did.
Where did that person come from?
Cato Meridian, they were
Okay.
superintendent. And I can tell you, that superintendent would not have gotten in that search if it wasn't that. Yep. So, it worked, right? So that pool just gets deeper, the quieter we can keep it. So the board's role in that last night those finalist interviews is usually, it's an evening meeting, it's a debrief with the candidate. Sometimes there's a dinner, sometimes it's, it's just a conversation. Final questions, you sort of get a sense of how the day went. I will give you all the notes from all of the interview groups that happened during the course of that day. I'll be in all of the interviews with the candidates, so I'll be hearing feedback. I debrief with each of the candidate pools afterwards. So we have a student group, the candidate leaves, I'll talk to the kids afterwards. We have a parent group, I'll talk to the parents afterwards. I meet with and process with the groups after all of those. I take my own notes, they take their notes, you get all the notes. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of information, but you'll get as thorough a picture as you can of what people thought about who your candidates were. That make sense? Great. So that's timeline and that's dates. So that's important stuff. You'll be getting an email from me before the end of the week with that poll to make sure that we can pick out some dates. I think the next thing I just wanted to spend a little time on, and I know you've got 3 board members who aren't here, but I did email this electronically to everybody, so everybody has access to it. But if we could get the final thumbs up or any changes from the board by Friday, then we can get it out and get it advertised. We're going to advertise in a few different places. We're going to advertise in the New York State Council of Superintendents advertising documents and website. In this case, we're going to advertise in SANES, that's the administrative team. We're going to advertise in the New York State School Boards Association. So those are the places where people who are looking for jobs look for these postings. I'm also then going to send this email out in our region to the colleagues within our region so that they all know about the opportunity and they can pass that along to administrators that they think are qualified. And then I'm going to also send that out to my network statewide. All of the other BOCES district superintendents will do the same, and they'll send it out to their networks. So this will be out within a week or 2 across the state. So we just want to make sure that the content is what you want. So there's the sections that talk about from the board, the selection process. I put the dates in here, candidate profile. We can tweak that based on the conversation we have tonight, if need be, or we can leave it as it is. Describes the position. I've listed it as, again, you can see open finalist search. So that allows me to explain to the candidates how that'll work. Then we also have a salary range in there, and I want to have a conversation among the board tonight to finalize that. I did a little research. I sent, was working with your board president a little bit on, he relayed to me some of your initial thoughts along that line. So I think this range is reasonable, but I want to get your feedback on that. and then the district profile section, and then our community section. So, our marketing coordinator, Jackie Weegan, worked with your folks here to get the content for this. So that's where it came from. But you're the board, and so we want to make sure that you're okay with what it looks like.
So in my opinion, and for the fear of offending somebody, because I don't know who gave me the information,
Mhm.
I think using information from 2017 is outdated. That's 7 years old.
So what page are you on?
I'm on district profile,
Okay.
when we talk about our students for 2 and 4 year colleges and advanced designation regents diplomas. Those are from 2017. Is there any way we can have a little bit more current, so it looks like we're,
I can see if we
That
can
was
work
sent
on
out, that may be a typo.
it. What's that?
Jackie did request that information, we did send it.
Okay,
That was late.
so we'll double check that.
so my other thing that would follow this is, we take a lot of pride in our students who go with trade schools or
Yeah.
directly into trade, and I think it would be nice to, if possible, add that statistic in next to the colleges.
Okay.
Because
You know, if we have that,
If we
I know
can't
we
find-
have-
If we can't find that, we could find CTE endorsements,
Yeah.
which is gonna be
CTE
the
enrollment.
closest match to that, sending them out career ready.
So I think it would give the message that we
Yeah.
find value in that.
yeah, I mean, we can certainly, we would know your numbers on CTE,
Yeah.
but I just wanna make sure that we're as current as we can. Okay,
She was an in-house one, Matt, I want to include that.
okay, thanks. Everybody agreed on those pieces? And that's why we ask these questions,
Yeah.
right? So, like, you said not to offend, I'm not offended, right? I wanna make sure it's your brochure.
I don't know if somebody sitting in this room gave the information, so
Right.
it just,
Yeah,
it showed up for me that I was like, that's
Yep.
outdated.
any other pieces that jump out at anybody?
I thought it was very well put together.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
They do a good job.
so, well, definitely agree though on the, we can get more updated
Yep.
information.
Okay, we'll work
more
with,
current,
yep.
like you said.
happy to do that. All right, and I think on the brochure, the only thing that I just wanna make sure that we put a dot on is that salary range, so, the salary range conversation's always a little tricky because there's not exactly one-to-one comparisons anyways, right? So what we look for are similar sized districts, and then we look at superintendents who have been in the chair in similar sized districts, how long have they been there? What is their salaries? What was the salary of Tom? Where do you wanna fall with that? And so you try to come up with a range that will be attractive, but also, within your budget, right? So I think somewhere between a $15,000 to $20,000 range is typical in advertising for these things. Now, I've never met a candidate who looked at a brochure and thought, well, I'm probably gonna get the low end of this range, right? Like they all want the high end of the range, right? That's a conversation that we will have with candidates and that, your attorneys will have with their attorney when we get to negotiations. So I think you wanna be as fair as you can. And what you wanna consider with the low end of the range is you really sort of ethically, in terms of how, and I say ethically, not legally, ethically, like, you don't ever wanna offer lower than the low end of the range that you've been, right? So you wanna feel comfortable that you're there. You can go higher, like, nobody's ever gonna be offended by that. If you found the candidate who was like, boy, this is the person we want, and they won't come, and we've listed it at 185, but they're not gonna come here unless they can get 190, and you're okay with that, you can do that. It gets trickier if the low end of the range is, say, 165 or 170, and you offer 155, right? Like, then you're starting off in an adversarial relationship with the person that you're trying to hire.
Well, I think we've had some discussions as a board already that, we wanna kind of, I don't think we would ever try to do that. We just wanna make sure that we start in a place that obviously attracts people, but, to your point, we can always go up, we can't go down. We would never wanna, well, now that we got you here and you've
I've
gone through the whole
I've
process.
seen it happen, and that's why I say it out loud.
I don't know.
Yep.
speaking for,
I appreciate
Other
that,
folks,
I
no,
appreciate
we would-
that's your stance and I respect it.
Yeah, we
and-
would-
And it will make all of our lives easier, but I have literally seen it and it's.
really?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would be wise.
I
It feels
agree.
like bait and switch all the way.
Yes. So, you know, starting at 165, starting at 170, I mean, I don't know where you want to start, but I think that range is probably pretty reasonable for what we're talking about. Anybody have thoughts along that line?
We shared some emails back and forth and that 170 to, now I know you said we were in the 170 to 180.
Okay.
Is what we were discussing, everybody
Yeah.
seemed to be pretty close on that, but if you
Okay.
think, you know, 165 to that 180 is, that shows a little bit more range.
Right. If
But it
180 is where you think you want your ceiling to be, then I think you try to work back from there. Yeah. Or, if you don't wanna advertise less than 170, you know, you could put a $10,000 range, there's just not a lot of play there. So you could get a high school principal who's applying and a sitting superintendent who's applying, and $10,000 range isn't significant in terms of experience.
What are you,
So our-
is it appropriate to ask questions you mentioned about comparable districts,
Mhm.
similar, you know, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so that's where these numbers, that's where my numbers are coming from.
That
There are-
170 to 180 range?
Yeah, yep. There are some people who are in comparable districts that are up around 190, but they have a lot more experience. So,
So how common is it that the superintendent is paid less than your principals?
that generally doesn't happen.
So that would be our trap,
Okay.
because we currently have, and I think this is last year's data, but we have a 184, a 172, a 168, a 167, 166, 163. Like those are
Okay.
salaries we already hold in the
Mhm.
district.
Yep.
So if we're gonna be realistic about it, like, I don't think we're gonna pay somebody less than those they
Yeah.
supervise.
That makes it trickier, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that, you might wanna bump your range up to like 175 to 190, I don't know. You know?
That was my thought, because I feel like we've gotta have a very careful line of, we wanna sell the district, we wanna show that we value, we're hoping that we get somebody with experience,
Yeah.
somebody with that, and those are gonna be the salaries of I feel like 165 is too low.
I don't
And-
disagree.
And I feel like immediately we're already kind of setting it up, and I also do feel like as a board, we need to be very careful that we're setting this range, but we're also not gonna be like, hey, yeah, why not, you're awesome, so let's give you whatever you want to come here. We've gotta be very careful
Yeah.
with that as well, that,
Yep.
that we have to keep that in mind as well, but I feel like bumping it up $5,000 to make sure that we're within, because I felt like that 165 would be definitely below.
That's too much.
Maybe the 170 to 185, is 15 grand enough of a range?
It is, but if you've already
I
got
feel-
people in the 180 range, you might wanna,
I feel like
Well-
170
I
to
feel like
190.
What if they're like the same
190
salary
would be
for 1 or 2 years? I mean,
What's that?
what if it's a similar salary for just a couple of years?
Yeah, so what you're really doing with a superintendent is you're giving, generally speaking, a 3-year contract, but the salary is for the first year, and then after that, you're negotiating a bump, is generally speaking how it goes. Yep,
We're advertising a range.
yes,
We're
you're not locked in.
locking in
Yep.
anything in.
I would say the thing that you're locked into is you don't wanna go lower than the bottom.
Right.
Other than that, you're not locked in. Yep. And so, if you're looking to be attractive, and if it fits in your budget, then based on this conversation, either 170 to 190 or 175 to 190, something like that. But if you're,
Like 170 to 190.
if you've already got people in the 180s in the district, then I think you've gotta go to 190 in the top of your range. That's my advice.
I like that window, and I think having that $20,000 range in there helps.
You got your 170, 190, man.
Sold.
Good.
Okay. Getting work done here.
That's right.
I appreciate the conversation. So that's the brochure. So we can certainly make those changes, and you've got colleagues who aren't here today, so I'll give them a little time to take a look at it and make sure that people have had a chance to weigh in. But if we could get, my goal is to try to get this out by the end of the week so that we can get things rolling. And then the last piece is the survey that we had the board take. I got 7 out of 9 board members replying to the survey, so, you know, the N is low anyways, so it's, so it's hard to generalize too much, but a couple of things jumped out at me, and I just wanted to, you know, we don't have to go over every single item, but some pieces that I think were interesting, right? So, the first question had to do with experience in teaching and administration, you know, which was more important. And, you know, the vast majority of the board said it was relatively equally important. No preference or no on the doctoral degree. I can tell you as somebody who has a doctoral degree, that's the correct answer. There's no, there's no semblance of resemblance between whether or not you have that and whether or not you can do this job. Teaching experience, so, you know, I think you look at that one and it sort of falls right in that. You don't want somebody who's too new, who's just jumped right into administration, who have a lot of experience. But there are some up-and-comers who really can be fantastic, so you don't want to close the door either. So I think that range makes perfect sense to me in terms of how you'd answer that question, and sort of how the board was thinking about that. Teaching experience, you know, no preference, or 7-12, which is interesting. You know, I think certainly some level of experience, you know, is the thing that's the most important. Applicant to a superintendent's position should have experience as principal. Yes, or probably? Sure, I mean, that makes sense. I can tell you this, I've never been a teacher or a principal. So, you know, there's different ways to do this. I was a social worker who became a special ed director, who became human resources director, who became superintendent. My joke to my colleagues is I don't know how, you know, they were all teachers. I don't know how they do their jobs, not having been in class. Because as a superintendent, I spend more of my time in that role than I did, you know, in the academic part. But yeah, if you understand how buildings work, there's no question that's better. Do you feel that the applicant for the superintendent should have experience as an assistant superintendent? You know, some yes and some not important.
And I hate to cut you off
Yeah.
that, but, well, when we get those other 2 responses, maybe then we can kind of regroup on the survey. Cause I wanna discuss more about it, and I know we're up against it
Sure.
to start the other meeting.
Sure, that's fine. Let me just point out one more piece that I thought was important.
Yep.
And it was the thing that resonated with me. There's a question in here about what's the characteristic that was the most important. And 100% of you said leadership. Can't remember exactly where that was. But yeah, you know, what that speaks to, and I think it puts you in a good place, is that this is a district that is not trying to fix something. Right? Another response that a lot of you gave to one of the questions had to do with whether or not you are looking for somebody who has business experience or budgeting experience, right? And a lot of you said yes, and I know you have a business official that's also retired, so that makes sense that you'd be looking for that. But when you're looking for leadership above fixing an academic problem or fixing an HR problem or fixing a special ed problem or fixing something else, now, I'm not saying every district doesn't have areas they can improve upon, but you're looking for somebody to take your district to the next level, right? And that's a really good place to be, and that's going to be an attractive piece for candidates in here. And so I think that you're well positioned there. So these survey results are important for me to be able to reflect back to the candidates as I'm meeting with them for screening interviews. So I know what's important to you, and I can relay that. I don't go over the survey with them, but knowing what's important to you helps me know what I'm listening.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I'll make sure, I'll send out a note to the board after I talk with Aaron, and we'll make sure that by Friday, we let you know if there's any other changes for the advertisement.
Great.
And we'll remind anybody that hasn't done the survey yet to get those in.
And I'll put a reminder out when I send out the poll for the dates. Okay. Great. I think we're in good shape.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Mr. Falls, you can assume your position. Couldn't believe the number of kids.
Val? See what you tried to do there earlier, Kelly.
What's that? Yeah, I love it. Yeah, is it mine? Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you did.
The lapel pin.
Like, that's not. Yeah. Like, really? It's easy to blame Good to see you.
All right, everybody. I have 6:34. I'd like to call our meeting to order. From there, I'll accept the motion to move to executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we'll do that.
No, this is definitely.
Oh, yeah.
No, I got it. Good, how are you?
I was supposed to give you that detail. The funny part is how she like, has grown to like, just like ignorant. Like she'll just, but you know she's. She's great.
I thought they were. Mira told me that some kid after you did that and like this kid made him
There's kids that come to my book, in my office now and see the book, and they're like, it's Nancy. Nancy.
Oh my god. They actually show more than this. Yeah. You haven't seen the fancy Nancy book? No, I have not. Doesn't surprise me that one exists though. No, I mean, it exists now. It's the free file. And I made it, and I put Doug on there.
I think her niece saw it, it's kind of like, what is this? Maybe that's why now she does
Yeah, it's, yeah, I have like that and Jen said she's gonna so.
Well.
How's it been soloing in the boat? Sleeping really well?
Yeah, the best I've ever slept.
Yeah.
Like my mind just like shuts off.
Full.
There's no more.
How's your good?
No, it's great.
I'm
I still not thinking about it. Until you get to your office. Oh, back in that.
Never accidentally open my email wrong time.
Yeah.
Yeah. When your day extends, like, you've got a chicken, right? 'Cause all kinds of stuff hits the fan for all of us. We're not free anymore.
And the other one's like, no, I'll text him. I'll be like, oh, God, I knew that was you. Oh my God, Robert doesn't know, I'm like, where are you? Right. It's not Josh's line. And it'll get just this part of you. The back part goes from here down.
That was a cool picture. I know. I know.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Yeah, right. With no attribution whatsoever. Great.
Flexibility of things that are out of the way and stuff.
Yeah.
They got second couple nights to get that taste. But yeah, I like that. Yes. So they take it substantially harder, but the seasons back were good. We were like 5. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right now. They said it's gonna be more than you go every Saturday, and you're paid for. You go every other Saturday. Right. And if you go to the ski club. I mean, I think the ski club has a 280. Yeah. 60%. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a big hit. It was nice. Like October. That crowd was nice. I didn't see it all there for free. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's like their second house. It's beat. Yeah, it'll go. I'm completely confident.
Right there. On the circulation desk.
Not that flag.
Oh, that flag. I thought it was a PLC flag. They must have one.
Okay, Steph. Want to sit behind you? The flag.
I'm never in here during announcements.
Doc, could you turn to the right? Okay. He's got it on the right screen. All right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's a violation, I think, of flag and that.
I know it.
I know who blinked.
The check's in the mail, Doc. What's that?
All right, I'll request a motion to approve the minutes of the 10:22 regular meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Residents' comments. I have none to offer at this time. Superintendent Turk.
Yes, I have one item that I'd like to notify the board about. Over the weekend, I had a call from Matt Cook. Matt let me know that the Cortland School Board member that represents both Homer and Cortland on the OCM BOCES board unfortunately has some health issues and they can't fulfill their role for the remainder of the school year. And he asked me if we had any one of you that would be interested in serving in that capacity through the end of the year. For those folks that have been here for a while, Cortland and Homer trade off that responsibility. Luke Marinas from Homer was on for a long time, and then only recently did we make the change to Cortland, and this has been, I think, year 2 or 3 for this individual that's been on it. And Matt asked us if we had someone that would be interested. I won't put you on the spot to make you tell me now, but if anyone's interested, please let Kelly know or let me know. And if you have any questions about what the responsibilities are, I'd be happy to have you talk with Matt about those as well. So give it some thought, but I'd like to let him know by the end of the week. So if you're interested, why don't you reach out to me by email or give me a call on the phone, and we can talk from there, okay? Any questions that come up right now that you want to ask me? Okay. All right, that's what I have.
That's what we got. That brings us to our board presentation.
It does, and we teased you with some information the last time we were together. Mrs. Falls is here, though, to talk in more detail with some of the outstanding staff that we have here at the intermediate school about this latest recognition for the intermediate school. So, Mrs. Falls.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tonight, I have a few of our teachers here with us. We have Jen Berthelo. Mrs. Berthelo is 3rd grade chair. We have Maddie Guy, who is a brand new teacher, her first year here in Homer. And we have Mrs. Guy, who is our instructional coach. Mrs. Stone, who is our grade 4 grade level chair. And Mrs. Slade, who is also our grade chair for grade 5. So together we're gonna come together and tell you a little bit about this. First we're gonna play the video. Maybe some of you had seen it, but Kevin kind of went through our school and took some highlights, and we have some of our leaders speaking on it, so we're gonna start with that.
Homer Intermediate School's commitment to student success has paid off in a big way. The school recently earned a prestigious recognition as a Model PLC at Work school status, awarded by Solution Tree. In order to earn this designation, schools must implement PLC at Work concepts for at least 3 years, present clear evidence of improved student learning, and explain the culture, practices, and structures of the school to be submitted for review. PLC at Work is a process that focuses on things such as learning, a collaborative culture, and continuous development.
By narrowing our focus on what's truly essential, we create a pathway for deep understanding, and we avoid the trap of simply skimming through content without depth. Collaboration is what truly transforms these standards into living, breathing curriculum that meets the diverse needs of our students.
Through weekly collaboration meetings, our teachers were able to create common formative assessments, or CFAs, to analyze data and plan responses to help all of our students succeed.
Collaboration meetings are a crucial part of our professional learning community and have been integral to our success. During these meetings, we've worked together, analyzed the data, and planned ways to immediately reteach essential standards. Without regular collaboration, this level of responsiveness would not be possible.
And this collaboration extended beyond just the staff.
Last year, all grade levels started having students track their ELA and math data. We would have the students color in a chart tracking each math and ELA standard. This fostered student growth towards these standards and allowed students to take control of their learning and mastery of skills.
Homer Intermediate School's recognition as a Model PLC at Work school is a testament to staff's commitment to creating an equitable and effective educational environment for all Trojans.
Since all teachers in our building are working towards the same goals, more and more students are showing that they are making gains, and they are showing this throughout the school year.
When we collaborate as a professional learning community, we bring together our collective expertise, experience, and creativity. We develop more effective strategies, support one another, and ultimately create a richer learning experience.
So thanks, and we appreciate Kevin putting that together for us. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about the PLC, the professional learning community, and what that means through our data. Some of you, to keep parents informed, last year we had Wyatt and Connor that came and helped and show some of that, so you kind of got a peek at some of the things we were working on last year at our board highlight. Also our guaranteed and viable curriculum of how all students are learning the same thing, regardless of which classroom they're in or what level they're learning, as well as the PLC framework and how that comes together to make it work.
Okay, so this is me, as a fifth grade teacher where I commented in the video, I'm definitely seeing the growth, okay? Once they come to me after being third, fourth, and fifth, and even this is just their FastBridge data, just for A reading, and it's neat to see how we're already changing our intervention times because it used to be when we didn't have enough people to provide those tier 2 and tier 3 services. Now it's like, wait, we have so many tier 1 students, which is a really great thing to see, and that's a great problem to have because you can see that growth on that chart, just as how much they're coming more prepared to us in fifth grade. So it's a really great problem to have where we need more tier 1 teachers.
So this is an example of a math CFA in fourth grade. All students in fourth grade are given this CFA the same week. So we're able to track how they're doing towards the math standards, and then we also give these in PLA. So all students are given the same assessment, and we can reteach, we can do extension. So it's just a really great tool to see how they're doing towards those standards. Because there are 4 big ideas of PLC. So it kind of started, what do we want all the students to know and be able to do? We got very clear on that. How will we know if they learn it? How do we respond when they don't learn it? And how do we extend it when they're already proficient in the standard that we're talking about? So this is what we talk about weekly in our collaboration meetings together.
And with that, as a new teacher, from day one I knew exactly what I was going to be teaching. So I knew I could turn to anybody on my team because all students are getting the same education. And so it's nice and refreshing to come to a school that values that collaboration time because it helps me get those students where they need to be.
So as you can see, the PLC process not only gives us the model school status, but more importantly, it helps us meet our students where they are. It gives us opportunity to grow professionally and collaboratively. And in turn, it helps us collectively work together to meet our students' needs. When we talk about creating the assessments, it's important to know that we not only create the assessments together,
we also take them together to make sure we understand what we're asking our students to do, then we grade them together, then we have conversations about what we can do to help our students meet the goals. So a lot of steps go into giving an assessment. All in all, PLCs foster growth, collaboration, and it really puts the student learning first, which is why we're really here. So we're just really proud to be a model school. Questions?
Do you have any data on how it is affecting the state test scores?
No.
Like on the first slide you show?
Yep,
You don't
that
know
is
about
Fastbridge. We do not have state
So,
test data
It looks
because,
like it goes down. So how is,
so we're saying as students move up from grade 3 to 4 to 5 overall, so if we look at the multi-tiered intervention system, it should be a triangle where the top is tier 3 and the smallest number of students need those tier 3 interventions, and then tier 2 is some students that maybe just need some extra time, and then tier 1 are students that are reading on grade level. So with Fastbridge, there are 72% that by 5th grade, most of them are reading on grade level. So because of the interventions being done in the classrooms with the reading teachers, with our E&L teacher, and those interventions that were working with students and grouping and regrouping students are having our data increase for a number of students who are reading on grade level. We just chose one graph to show.
It's showing from like 3rd grade was at 54%, 4th grade is at 58%, 5th grade is at 72%. You're seeing that growth. It's not from year to year, it's
so the green
for the
in
grade level.
21 is not the same students in 23?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
sorry, thank you.
Thank you
Yep.
for that.
We're looking at like by
So
grade
if,
level, not by.
if we had the triangle chart, where are we for tier 2 and tier 3? Like what's our percentages looking like right now?
It depends on the grade level. So 5th grade, we have our reading teachers doing tier 2 interventions. So we have some of the students that are working in tier 3 one-on-one with a reading teacher because that's what they need, and we're able to do that. So
if we're going with year 23 and it's
Yes.
72, does that mean the 28%, that's only 28% in the top two
in the
tiers?
top 2 tiers, tier
Okay.
2 and tier 1.
Alright.
And for 5th grade, you guys may even know off the top of your head, we have reading teachers doing tier 2.
Right, I was gonna say, this year in 5th grade, I could tell you that there's 11 children who are in tier 2 and tier 3 in 5th grade this year.
Which is amazing.
Which is
Which is
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
11 out of,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
way more
It's
than
less
that.
than
We have a
10%.
huge grade level this year.
Okay.
So it is a huge percentage, it's a small percentage, but a huge growth.
Sure.
So,
Well,
yeah.
it's nice when we
It's
start
nice to
looking
see.
at the students, when we're placing them in their tiers, like every student's like on a sticky note, and then we don't go with how many adults we have, we go with what do our students need first. So then we put them in groups, and then after that's done, then we say, okay, now how can we staff it? And sometimes stuff has to get really creative in staffing it, but we try to figure out, make sure every student has a group that they need, and if they need a one-on-one time for that high intervention, then they get it. So, it's been amazing. to
And
watch
some
that.
of our students, especially in 3rd grade, get double intervention with a reading teacher. They get a half an hour during the ELA time, and then they also get a half an hour at their MTSS, which is pure tier 3 that we when this came out, we never dreamed we could actually get an hour for kids of supplemental. A lot of creative use of time and a lot of helping. I mean, this group also helps with the schedule. They help with all sorts of things to make it work. And sometimes we go back to the drawing board and try again. And again and again.
And we do have other schools that are coming to find out what we're doing because we're on the right path. We're constantly changing what we're doing. Everything needs to keep growing and getting better. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So.
Even the data tracking, which you saw there and we brought here last year, they have been experimenting with more of a digital tracker now that 5th grade kind of started to see, okay, these students have used technology the most, let's see, so we even changed that since we've gotten promoted as a model school, so everything's always changing, and that's that's part of it, is looking at, different ideas, and maybe this idea doesn't work, but we could tweak it, and now it's great.
You might have covered this. How did they find out about what you guys were doing? You know, like how did they notice that, you know, that you guys deserve the designation? Like how did they determine?
We were, as part of our school improvement grant, the district, the year before I got here, contracted with Solution Tree. So we worked directly with Barb Phillips, who is a representative of Solution Tree. And she worked with not only our intermediate school teams, but also our elementary school teams. And that's not lost in this conversation either, that these collaboration structures are alive and well at our elementary school too. So in our intermediate school, working directly with Solution Tree, this is one of the outcomes of working with them, is that at the end of the work, when the consultant's work is done and the structures are in place and we got supports in place for the structures, you can apply for model school status, but you have to have accompanying data of 3 years worth of growth in data pockets that they give you as part of the application process.
There's an extensive process, like you had to write like a huge essays talking about the process the school went through, our collaborative culture. So we had a team of us all get together and we did that collaboratively. It was a work of many. So
We have visits from
Yeah.
other Solution
Yeah.
Tree.
yeah, so people from Solution Tree came and just watched us run, and we just did it organically. This is how we do it. If we're not doing it right, tell us. And they were really happy with what they were seeing. So.
You know, they mentioned targeted and flexible, and that really is very much important, right? If we're gonna meet the needs of our kids. The thing though that I took away from it, Maddie talked about coming in as a new staff member. We've talked for years about having something, a roadmap for a teacher when they come in, to be able to ensure that they have a good start, a solid understanding of where we want to go in terms of taking our children, and the work that these ladies have put in, and the staff in general, is nothing short of outstanding. So we really do appreciate it, the kids appreciate it, and I know it helps parent-teacher conferences go much better too, when you can be so specific about what a child needs and what you're working on them with, and I know parents appreciate it too. So. Any other questions for these folks?
I was just gonna say that today I had parent conferences, and I can tell you what, today was like one of the most clear ones of understanding from being an academic person, seeing how it laid out, seeing where Wyatt is at, and seeing and having the document, understanding it. It's such a great tool that you guys have put into place, and you know, it's a lot of work to put in, and also to become a model school is not an easy task, and so it's excellent work.
I think it's pretty outstanding. Our fifth graders who was in kindergarten for COVID. So everybody else, like, this is an amazing recovery to what could have been not such an awesome situation. So, well done.
Anybody else? Thank you, ladies, very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
You don't know who they are, you're like,
Alright, that brings us to new business. I'll request a motion to approve the reports from the Committee on Preschool Special Education.
Second.
Questions for Mr. Moore? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I'll request a motion to approve the reports from the Committee on Special Education.
Second.
Questions for Mr. Moore? All those in favor? Abstentions? I'm sorry. I got tripped up there.
It's okay, sorry.
Opposed? Abstentions? Alright. Next, we'll move on to disposal of items. Motion to approve the disposal of items from the junior high and high schools and the athletics department. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The next, I'll look for a motion to accept the donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Friends of Homer Wrestling Club.
Second.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, questions? Anybody have questions on this one?
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great donation, thank you.
So, just to clarify, the donation is actually in goods and service. So what the wrestling team is looking to do with the changes, and if you haven't had a chance to see the changes, we're next to the fitness room, so the dance room. We've moved the wall in there in order to provide more space with the amount of wrestlers that we have this year. I know in the wrestling meeting the other night, just the ladies alone, we have 23 female wrestlers this year. So we've actually moved the wall downstairs. The temporary wall is out, and on the wall, there will be a wrap that will go onto the wall that they'll have. If you've been in the smaller gym, you would see names of former wrestlers, state champions, sectional champions. They're going to put up on the new wall that we had put in, they're going to do a wrap. So they estimated the price of that, and in order for them to have an outside company come and do it, we had to accept the donation on behalf of Homer Wrestling. So it's not an actual monetary donation.
So where does the dance room?
It's still there. It's still there. The hardwood floor is still there, so that's not interrupted. We actually just moved into the fitness area room, and we were able to do that. Mr. Lisi had the folks who came in and put the room together for us, move and manipulate the equipment, so we were able to do that. So that'll really be a nice space once everything is done.
Space is gonna be excellent. I mean, on top of the 20 female wrestlers, roughly 45 JV varsity wrestlers.
Yeah.
Boys, so the extra large space is gonna be huge. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Brings us to a motion to approve the JV varsity wrestling trip to Rochester, New York from December 27th to the 28th to attend a wrestling tournament. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I'll request a motion to approve the junior high science club traveling to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from April 25th to the 26th. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I'll request a motion to approve the environmental club students' trip to Newcomb, New York, the ESF campus from February 28th through March 2nd, 2025. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The next piece of your packet that we have is several policies for first reading. It's more of an informational piece. No action to take at this time. But if you do have any questions on those policies, please let us know. Okay.
Somehow got cut off on the copy.
I'd request a motion to approve the following policies for first reading. Do you want them individually mentioned? Is that how we should do that?
You can waive that.
Okay. Motion to approve the following policies for first reading. You see the list of them there.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Personnel items. I'll request a motion to approve personnel as recommended by Superintendent Turk. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Alright. That brings us to informational items.
Yes, I've got a couple to share with you. A fundraising update from the high school. The class of 2025 will be selling some apparel. Don't miss that opportunity to color up. And then we have a staff update from the high school as well. We have a SUNY Cortland migrant education tutor caseworker that works with us and works with the students at the high school. So I wanted to just let you know that that person was working in our building. And that's what I.
Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, that brings us to our community voices section. Sure, our sign sheet. Right to the right, yeah. Nothing? Anyone wishing to be heard that's not signed in? Okay. Board committee reports. I don't show any for tonight.
Nope.
But we do have some district committee reports.
We do. We have a couple for you. Both the social emotional learning and the student engagement committees met since we had gathered last. I'll start with Mr. Moore and Mrs. Hamas and the social emotional group. Mr. Moore.
Sure. Short and sweet update today, but time always considers me. We met, we reviewed the updated plan. The group had not, they had been a part of the creation, but just making sure everybody was on the same page with where the final plan landed. We reviewed that plan. We then talked about, as we had presented previously, our plan is a lot of carryover from the previous 5-year plan. So we again reviewed where we left off in the current status of each of those areas, and then talked about what are those next steps, what are those needs that we have in each of those areas to start to tackle next. We also reviewed with the group various district groups that are already charged with being a part of this work, and started talking about how do we utilize those groups, continue to utilize those groups as opposed to creating new ones. How do we also look at our district task force as a conduit to each of those groups to connect back to the overall SE task force goals. So we did that, and we have surveyed our group just to make sure to try to offer a variety of different ways that people can participate in the different levels of work or the different types of work that we do. Because we know that people have different levels of ability to commit to certain things, but people who want to get involved, we wanted to make sure they had some options. So that's where we landed. Our next meeting will be, again, taking those next steps of that kind of work of making those connections.
Questions for Chris or Aaron?
Have you gained new volunteers this year for your group?
Not many.
Have you, where have you put it out?
So last year we put it out on the website, and we also advertised at various events around the district. We may have to take the Mr. Kirk and Mr. Finn approach and perhaps see if we can phone some friends.
Any other questions for these two folks? All right, thank you for your efforts, appreciate it. Let's go to Mr. Ebner, the student engagement group.
Thank you.
As well.
Mr. Turk, we met October 24th. Part of our charge for that particular meeting was begin the conversation about how we're going to measure the 3 charges that were responsible for the implementation. And as we were having this conversation, it dawned on us that there were some terms as part of our charges that we were defining a little differently as we were talking about them. Specifically, the phrases meaningfully engaged, relevant curriculum, effective teaching, and voice and choice. As educators, it's important that we have the same definitions for what we're talking about. And as we were talking, we were discussing, we were saying the same things, but it was coming out differently. So we were confusing ourselves on what do we mean by relevant curriculum? Do we mean relevant, that it's up to date to the current standards? Or do we mean it's relevant to the students that are in front of us who we're teaching every day? So what we did is we decided to parse some of this stuff out. We took a time out. And luckily in education, we have unlimited timeouts, and we should use them. We went back to the drawing board, and I shared a document where we put together a list, and anyone can participate in it, that's part of our meeting. How would you define meaningfully engaged? And we captured people's definitions. How do we define relevant curriculum, effective teaching strategies, and voice and choice? From there, at our next meeting on December 10th, we're going to look at these collection of definitions, and we're going to come up with one working definition for each of those 4 terms. So when we decide to talk to teachers at some point and students, when we say relevant curriculum, we can preface it by, we're defining relevant curriculum by this. We're defining voice and choice by this. Because again, 200 educators in a district, we may all define these things just a little differently. When you're trying to measure the success of our charges, that could be, that could spell doom for some of the data you're collecting because people are coming at it from a different lens. So trying to sharpen the lens there. At our next meeting, again, we're going to look at bringing those definitions together to have one common definition. Kind of the same process we did with our curriculum framework a few years ago. One definition for the word curriculum. We're going to determine best ways to measure, capture more ideas around that. And then we're going to begin to prioritize our strategies. As Mr. Moore was saying with the social emotional learning group, there's a lot of carryover from the last strategic plan to the current strategic plan. There's some initiatives that are currently in place. They're working, they're happening on a daily basis. There's others that we have to create, like an end of course survey is one of the strategies we came up with. But what's that going to look like? What's it going to look like in 5th grade versus 12th grade versus kindergarten versus a parent survey? So that'll be our next steps, is to identify those strategies and when would be the best time. Again, it's a 5-year plan. We don't want to pack everything in the first year. Right? It's virtually impossible to be good at everything all at once. So we begin to prioritize, what do we want to do this year? What do we want to do next year? Really look at that 5-year stretch of time. We had 21 people invited to the meeting, 10 attended. It was a great attendance. We had a student come, so that was great too. Other students, of course, are involved in many things, which is wonderful too. So we'll continue to keep them in the loop with the communication efforts on our shared email list. So next meeting again is December 10th at 4 o'clock. Small conference room in H-Tech if you want to come.
Questions for Jeff? Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Brings us to board member activities.
So as Amy mentioned last time, she had gone to the NISBA conference in New York City, and she is going to share some of her learning with you tonight that she took away from that.
So I sort of lied, I said it would be 5 to 10, but then I got really excited, so I went to 10 or more. But you can't actually see it, so.
It's coming.
So an 8th grader helped me put this together because I don't actually know how to do a slideshow. So I'm super proud of that. So when you go there, this convention had 1,000 people. So you show up, and it's one of the most magnificent events you could attend, honestly. So I met with Tom ahead of time, and we went through the whole offerings and kind of nitpicked through which ones might be appropriate for me to take, based on my interests and my service on the board. So I like to ask a lot of questions. So there was a class about questions, which I thought was super cool, to become more efficient in how do you ask questions without offending people or maybe saying things the wrong way, this kind of thing. So I thought that was relevant. It was a really good reminder when you're surrounded by people like you, the governance of our job, which I thought was just over and over hearing it. I've only been on the board 3 years, which come to find out is a very short time when you're sitting in the room with 24 years, 17 years. Like, it's pretty amazing. There was a woman there that had an award. She'd been volunteering for like 47 years. It was really awesome. So one of the reminders constantly was to always go back to your strategic plan. And anything that's presented to us at our board meetings, how does it affect our strategic plan and how does it directly impact our students? So I thought that was a good reminder for me when I'm asking questions and going through stuff. we're not all the same kind of learners. So a good reminder as to how people have different learning skills, listening being one of them, but all the things that we can do while we're listening. To go through information, intentions, causes, meanings, implications, like Jeff was just saying about, a word can mean something different to you as it can mean to me. Kevin and I have been in the same seminar once and walked away with totally different things, and it was hysterical. We kind of laughed at each other like, that's not at all what I got out of that, but that's great. And that's what, being a part of a board is about, is bringing different ideas to the table. So this seminar was all about the governance and questions and how you come at your questions and the benefit of asking a question in the right fashion. So there's that. I'm gonna flip through it. Anybody can have access to this slideshow. So the next set I'm gonna do is AI. So this convention was really based on AI, which I had no experience with at all. And this is Sophia. She's a robot and she travels the world and she's pretty amazing. Her eyes blink, her arms move, she scoots around, so it's like we're in the Jetsons. It's real now. The AI exposure was mind-blowing. There was, Dan Fitzpatrick was one of the speakers at it. He has written a book, he's an author. He wore AI glasses, so that's coming. Like AI glasses that read your information and whisper into your ear the answers. So there was a lot of talk about, it's here, so instead of focusing on protecting the kids, it's important to teach the kids and teach them how to validate information because it's not all real. Like when we were raised, you had to see it to believe it, but that's no longer the case. You can see snakes coming out of crocodiles, whatever, because you can make anything you want on the web now. So what our children learn is going to be a lot different because we have to teach them how to verify if it's even real, which is pretty intense on its own. So artificial intelligence, we all use it already. Amazon, Siri, Pandora, Spotify, it pictures music lists and stuff for you. But then it gets into GPT, which I reached out to my friend John here and I was like, do you know about ChatGPT? That stuff is wild. It's amazing, what it does. So I'm not kidding. It is amazing that you can just put something in and then you can pick, I want it to be humorous, I want it to be professional, I want it to be short, and it spits it back out. And it will give you more than one way that it wants to do it. So that's really cool. What I loved about ChatGPT was Google Notebook, I think it's called. And it is a way that we can push out our SCL curriculum. You can make it be like a podcast. You can pick it to be a female and a male voice, and we can start sharing that information with our bus drivers, our custodians, our cafeteria. So our people who aren't normally part of our professional development can get that information to them in an audio form so they can listen to it like it's an audiobook if they chose to. But it makes it an option, it makes it available. It also makes ESL half the stress it is now because you can use this artificial intelligence to do almost anything. You just have to learn how. So it's really mind-blowing. It does present some problems though, because not everybody gets access to it. Then you run into plagiarism. So it's really important that our staff becomes more and more educated about it to stay on top of it before our kids are outgrown our staff and the knowledge of it. This was one of the prompts they put in, and then I think I forgot the answer, so I apologize about that one. So the next one was about board relationships and validating the things as a board, that collective bargaining unit and the teamwork and what should be part of the relationship. I thought it was valid. One of the things that I will show is it can show how even though we think we're doing the right thing, what it can actually cause on the other end of the spectrum within the district. So sometimes when we're saying something, we're actually disrespecting people or things of that form, but to see it in black and white helps it make more sense rather than people just saying you can't do that, you can't say that, but it helps to see why, to understand where your lane is as a board member. So the workshop consisted of a lot of things that would talk to you as to how to be a more efficient board, how you would work together with, start to finish on an item. value of how we can educate our community by teaching them, we refer to it as the chain of command, but there's a new terminology similar to like summer learning. Instead of summer school, summer learning, instead of chain of command, they call it chain of contact. So it kind of takes out that like maybe authority negativity part of it, but having an open chain of contact so that everybody knows your answers to questions, how it really closes the loop, and how we can avoid things that we think we're maybe helping a friend or saving somebody's feelings or things like this. How just sharing that information up front can be really relative to everybody. So I included this because this is another school's who should I call? So it goes through any kind of issue you may have, and it will tell you step 1, step 2, step 3. And it makes it as clear as black and white. And that's really super helpful for a parent or a student, somebody who isn't familiar with how academic chains go. So I thought that was relevant to share. And it just, the positiveness of reinforcing how a board works together and what their governance job is and how they support the community with their role, and people are less likely to be offended. This one is going to be about the superintendent. So I took 2 different seminars on finding the superintendent because of our current situation. Matt went over some of this stuff with us, which is great. NYSSBA has an actual outline that you can use for evaluations, but it also has an outline for board evaluations. So lots of school boards do a superintendent evaluation, and then they also do a board evaluation where they regroup and kind of go over how they're doing as a board and functioning with the goals that were set forth. These are things, I thought it was pretty cool that 3 to 5 goals is really all you should ever focus on for any kind of task. I thought that was a great reminder. Anything beyond that takes the value out of what are your priorities. So the 3 to 5 I thought was good. This is, you call that an acronym? Acronym, right? So to break it down, how to set your goals. I think everybody could always benefit from that type of thing. So the superintendent standards, what we're going through with that, how to make priorities there. The Board of Ed standards, what we should be doing for ourselves, how to make priorities there. And then the end of year review, we do a mid-review and an end of year review already for our superintendent. They suggest we also do it for our board, which I think is neat. So a review on what actually a board member's responsibility is. I think it's very validating to see it in black and white and to kind of get a better idea of what's our lane, what's our role, what's our job. Our commitment for this volunteer work. Our responsibilities, so the hiring of the superintendent is by far the biggest responsibility, so lucky us, we all get to do this together, this is great. This is gonna be a big deal. I'm hoping we don't have to give up spring break. The timeline, we went over this with Matt already, but I put it in here because community involvement, I think that would involve tonight, like those who showed up, they didn't speak, they didn't get to ask questions, I don't know how that works, but the interview process, but I like the time, so this is when people ask the difference between open and closed. This was one of the things that had stuck out in my head from the seminar that I wasn't able to verbalize at the table last time we were together, but I included it here. One of the things that they do suggest, though, with the community involvement is that we actually reach out to our parent groups, like our PTO, our SCA, and then we start to include people who have already volunteered gobs of hours and know our district at a different way than what we do. It was something that they suggested. I think we do a lot of this stuff, which is already great. We can actually recruit for applicants. We can't personally, as a board, recruit for applicants, but we can put it out, the message for them to apply for a position.
You're talking about superintendent?
Superintendent, yeah. And then it goes down to the interview, which is parallels again what Matt was already saying. Negotiations, so I would personally like to meet our lawyer before negotiation time, just to get a feel for what she is like. Lori, I think, so,
yeah.
Right? So I think it would be great to have her come in sometime just to introduce herself to us. And then I would love to make sure that when we do pick our new leader, that we present it in a really productive way where we don't feel like we dropped any balls or missed anything. So the onboarding process and all, I think I would like to make sure that we give some attention to that and really roll it out in a nice fashion. Some of the other things so those were slides. When you go to them, the slides, you can go in and look through all the different things. Some of the other ones that I went on was when the SCL, I went to this one through Buffalo. So Buffalo has had mass shootings and COVID, so they had two massive things happen in the last few years. And in their SCL program, they take all of their data and they use it to qualify for grants. And then they take their grant money and they actually do support services for their staff. So they have like 200 and some staff members that every Saturday will log on for different types of services for their own emotional being, which I found super fascinating that these teachers would give up Saturdays to work for their own emotional health. But it was funded through grants that were given by processing the data from SCL, like our surveys and stuff that we do. I thought that was really neat, and they were really willing to share any information. Everyone that presents is always like, you can email me, you can call me. I took another one on outdoor spaces, play spaces and learning spaces, and one of the things, a couple things stuck out, was that a child needs 75 square feet of area for play outside per child. That's when you're like measuring out. There is a less number of conflicts when there's more hours of play. And the woman that was doing the class was like a play therapist. So not only did she work with playground equipment, she was actually a therapist for play. And the surveys that they do on kids found that the things that children like the most are baskets, high spin, so we have lots of spin, and perch places. So I thought that was really interesting because we have this one slide out here, and a lot of kids don't like to use the slide because there's kids up on top of the slide. But it made me realize that's our perch place. So that's one of the things that they enjoy about being up there. That information I found really cool. The amazing things that you can do with outdoor space is just, it's amazing. So that was kind of my time there. I mean, I had other notes of different things to do. I really, really enjoyed my time. I would love it if more people wanted to go. Like, it is such an amazing feeling to sit there with 1,000 people who like want kids to learn and to know how to think and to get to touch stuff and to explore and be children at the same time in their process. So like validating their childhood with their learning experience. So I thought it was amazing. And I thought the guest speakers were just absolutely outstanding. I thought the AI exposure was mind-blowing. And the people, and there's these expo rooms. So you go through these expo rooms and there's like hundreds of vendors they're selling equipment and lawyers and contractors and like chess clubs that you can bring in over the summertime and computer equipment recycling, and it's just wall-to-wall vendors. And so I brought a piece of swag for everybody. Everyone got a piece of swag from the event. But it's an amazing exposure into a form of education that we don't get when we sit at the table. So I really enjoyed it, and I thank you all for your support and letting me go to it. I had a really awesome experience. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any
Amy,
questions?
you're gonna share that so we can share the.
Josh, would you
I'd be happy to share that with you.
I clicked the button that said anybody in the district, but I don't really know who it was.
Yeah, no, great, thank you.
Yeah. Did anybody have questions about it? Has anyone else ever been to one? Nobody's been? You've been? It's amazing. It is in New York City again. The dates are already posted, so.
Maybe that's why I never been.
Because it's in, well, it's not. So they do New York for 2 to 3 years, and then they do Buffalo and Syracuse.
Yeah, they move
I
around,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. But you can't, no visual aid is gonna show you how amazing, I mean, it's really a mind-blowing experience.
I mean, I think the takeaway in most conferences I've ever been to is there's usually 2 or 3 nuggets, something that you see or you hear, and the conversations you have with other districts are really beneficial, and you walk out with something tangible that you feel like, okay, I can use that.
And I ran into people I knew, which
Yeah.
was another
Yeah.
amazing experience to actually know people. So
Yeah, the high school
I did.
classmate.
Ran into a high school
Mike
friend.
Eve, yeah, he told me that. Yeah. Superintendent Chitney.
Yep. I also ran into Krista Foley.
Hmm.
Yeah. And he asked about you.
I'm sure they did.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Upcoming events.
Yes, do we have any other board member activities before we jump? I don't wanna shut anybody down. In spite of what oh, Chris, go.
We had our class of 2025 did a powder puff game this past Friday, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, we have our senior and freshman girls go up against the juniors and sophomores in the game of flag football. It's always a blast, and this year was no different. Everybody had a great time. Juniors and sophomores took home the trophy this year. But we raised a good amount of money for our senior trip, and from what I've heard, everybody had a lot of fun. Whether it was something else.
Anybody else? Okay, in spite of what Mr. Moore will say, it's not Anagon, it's Antigone. That'll be taking place this Thursday through Saturday night, the high school fall play at the high school. They have been practicing. Mr. McGorry has been working alongside, and he informs me that we're in for a heck of a show. So we're hoping that you're able to attend one of those presentations. And you look at the calendar, and we're a couple of weeks away from Thanksgiving, which is mind-boggling. But we'll be looking forward to spending time with all of our families as part of that. And then once we hit December, you can see all the holiday concerts. A great opportunity to see our kids in action. That's what I have.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Thank you, everybody.
Did you want to go first?
Swag I get to take home? I have so much paper in my office.
Small notebook.
Is this a blue pen?
Thanks, man.